everybody. My name is Jason Moseley and I'm the CEO of IBIS. Welcome to another edition of Leading Lights. Today we're going to go to the South African market and we're going to focus on skills, young talent and training in the automotive sector. I'm delighted to have with us today from the Guru Group of Learning, the Managing Director, Bajith Panday. Welcome, Bajith.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, Managing Director, Guru Group of Learning. Tell me a little bit about that. What do you do in the South African market?
Thank you, Jason. Managing Director, just a fancy title for somebody who pays all the bills. But actually, we're a small company that punches above its weight. We've been in existence for about 13 years. We're basically an education, training, and research organization. And those three are quite important because we are in big need of an integrated set of services in the South African market. So we're quite let's call us a developmental state with very, very good policies, but I think we fall short on practice and implementation. And therefore, my company exists as an independent company, and we marshal as many intellectual resources as we can, basically to exist for one reason, and that is to use skills development, human resources development, basically to unleash the potential of South African people and to hopefully contribute to a world-class workforce.
Okay, so Bajith, we at IBIS we work across many different markets, and we know reasonably well through our media partner in South Africa the South African market itself. But we do know that skills and young talent and attracting people into the automotive aftermarket is a challenge across all markets. So, what are the things that you're doing to improve the profile of our sector, get young people attracted into it, and eventually try and retain those people, those valuable skills in the sector?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. It's a question that has occupied many people and many bright thinkers throughout the world. How to crack the systemic problem of skills shortages, and none more so than South Africa, where we have quite a mismatch between the supply of skills as supplied by training providers, universities of technology, and the demand for them. And what we find is that there's always a mismatch. And no matter how much research we do, we don't ever seem to get it right. So if I had to just, come right at your question, we're trying very, very hard, and we're trying very innovative means and ways of getting young people involved in skills development from a very early age. And I think you'll agree with me, there is a misconception, almost a misnomer, that if you don't have an academic education at a university, you've sort of missed the boat. And I think that's the first thing that we've got to try to get right amongst young people. And that has everything to do with changing of attitudes and increasing the parity of esteem between a university, which is a very academic institution, and a university of technology, or a TVET college, or an FE college, as you would call them in the UK. And I think that can only happen if we have quality in skills training, and if we have world-class lecturers in skills training and TVET colleges. And then parents will vote with their feet and will send their children to institutions of vocational and technical training, rather than joining the queue to join higher education institutions, because of a lack of a viable alternative. So yes, so we are involved in a project currently funded by the British Council to try to utilize small businesses to host learners from TVET colleges, because what we're finding is that the systemic problem that we have in South Africa is that there's an absolute shortage of workplaces, and at that, quality workplaces that are conducive to learning, and workplaces that meet the requirements of the training authorities.
It's a very good point, Bajith. So we've, as part of IBIS, we've spoken to many young people who've been involved in skills championships around the world and heard their view on how we can improve youngsters into the sector and propagate, a pipeline of people. And one of the things they raise, which is a great point you make, is the ability of the workplace to be available to support such training. So a question to you, I guess, is, we hear from the business owners, look, I don't have time to take on an apprentice. I'm too busy. I haven't got time to train people. I just don't. How can we get over that, Bajith? What sort of techniques do you deploy there to say to these workplaces, look, you should really consider this. You should really support this. It's really in your interest.
Well, I think we're too harsh on employers. I think that we expect employers to be, I don't know, directors, marketing machines, sales machines, finance gurus, and then we also expect them to become workplace learning experts. And I think that's a bit harsh on them. So I think what's really important is that in order to create a culture of learning, it needs to be infused into the organization. And I think what we are finding in our research that we're currently busy with is that small business owners are very, very overworked. They're overwhelmed. As much as they would like to get involved in training, as much as they would like to assist young people, they find themselves completely overwhelmed. And I think this is where government and institutions such as IBIS can be of huge help by assisting or by getting involved in mentorship. And I think that if we had a mentored approach to learning, we'll be able to ensure that the small business owner is able to get on with the business of being sustainable as a business. Because if the business is not sustainable, you can forget about workplace learning. And therefore, it's in our interest to ensure that we contribute to small business development and sustainability so that we will be able to have an environment where our young people can go and practice their skills in a mentored environment. So I think, Jason, it's really important that we put our heads together to find out what are the best approaches to mentorship so that we can ensure that people who are qualified and who are experienced can become mentors and assist business owners in that regard.
Yeah. Again, Bajith, it's a great point you make, and again, something that we've picked up on throughout the last few years, being in various different markets, that we can focus on the training and on the progression, but sometimes it's in the workplace where that mentorship isn't in place, that where we get the leakage and we get the people leaving because they don't feel that overall care and attention. And I think that's what you're saying in terms of where mentorship will really come in. So a question for you, but if you wouldn't mind, could you just tell us a little bit about the apprentice program, apprentices in general in the South African market? How is it structured? How does it work? Yeah, just give us a bit more information on that.
Yeah, thank you. That is a great question. Do we have 2 hours? No, I don't think we do. So the apprenticeship system historically was very white, male-dominated. It was historically dominated by state organizations and parastatals such as railways, harbors, and ports, the SAPS, the South African Police Service. And what happened was the system became a little obsolete And I think once the democratic movement took over in 1994, for one reason or the other, the apprentice system collapsed literally. And so what's happened in the last 10 years, Jason, the Department of Higher Education and Training in South Africa, who are responsible for the apprenticeship system, has declared the decade as the decade of the artisan. And so that is a huge step forward from a policy perspective in this country, because policy normally opens up funding mechanisms and funding pots to assist with the training of young people in apprenticeships. And so the target for South Africa over the next 10 years is to train 30,000 artisans per year up to the year 2030. Now, just to put it in perspective, I don't know, 10 years ago, we were training between 5,000 to 8,000 artisans. Currently, we are training up to 14,000 to 15,000 artisans. And we are hoping to get that number up to 30,000, hopefully annually by the year 2030. And so if we don't get that right, we stand the risk of further exacerbating the systemic problem that we have in South Africa of a mismatch between the supply of skills into the marketplace and the demand for them. And so it's very encouraging that the government has really put its money where its mouth is, and it is really pulling out all stops to further the apprenticeship system. Now, if we had to home in on the motor industry, the motor industry in South Africa is a darling industry. It's a darling industry because it contributes in the region of 7.5% to South Africa's GDP, which is massive in our terms. And so in order to sustain that wonderful industry, which, by the way, is a very highly subsidized industry in South Africa, because we have a very generous subsidy program that is funded by the South African government. And for good reason, because the industry is such a large exporter of motor vehicles. In fact, we export more motor vehicles to overseas countries than we do retain for local use. So that is an absolute plus for the economy of South Africa. However, the apprenticeship system, like many systems, is a highly regulated system. And therefore, the devil is always in the detail. And the more detail we have in the system, the more labor intensive and the more funding intensive it becomes. And so to train an apprentice in South Africa, Jason, is in the region of between 400,000 to 500,000 rands, which takes place over a 4-year period, give or take. And what we're finding is that because of our historic problems with low literacy, low numeracy, low completion rates in school, low completion rates at university and universities of technology and TVET colleges, we find that a lot of our apprentices do very well technically, but struggle with some of the theory. And so what happens is that there is always a bottleneck, and it leads to compromised completion rates. So what we're doing is we're working very hard with industry. We're working really, really hard with training providers, and we're trying to make sure that there is a concerted effort to make sure that the apprentice in South Africa is well supported and is expanded beyond the traditional white males who dominated the system. And now it's being opened to young Black males and females, all other race groups of South Africa, just so that there can be an even playing field for all people to have access to apprenticeships and learnerships, so that we can ensure that South Africa's workforce is reflective of the demographics of this country. So I think just to underline the point, we are in the apprenticeship system in South Africa. We are working really, really hard to implement, and we are trying really, really hard to ensure that we attract more young people. And mind you, the number of places available is directly proportionate to the number of workplaces available, to the amount of funding available from the government and from the SETAs. And we refer to them as the SETAs. The acronym stands for Sector Education Training Authority, and they basically govern and fund apprenticeships in South Africa.
And Bajith, the numbers that you're seeing now in apprenticeships, you talked about 30,000 sort of targets. What are the trends that you're seeing now? Are you starting to see trending up? People come. Is it working? Is this investment? Is this profiling? Is all the stuff you're doing with the government? Is it actually starting to work? Are you seeing those numbers increase coming into that training world?
Yes, I think the short answer is yes. The numbers have gone up quite appreciably. So we are at around 14,000 to 15,000 artisans, but we have a massive way to go. So your question is a great one. And I think, once we've done a review, I think there is a review that is currently underway, where the artisan program in South Africa, vis-a-vis trade tests, artisan tests, learnerships, are all being thrown into the mix to find out just what has been the impact of the investment. And I think that is currently underway, and that review is taking place. But just from an unscientific point of view, Jason, what we found very encouragingly is that for the first time in the last 5 years or maybe more, we are finding a lot of young females who are getting involved in the traditionally male-dominated industries of motor mechanics, diesel mechanics, and auto body repair. In fact, the project that I referred to earlier on, that we are working with the British Council on, the cohort of students that we have recruited, of the 10 that we have recruited for a pilot project, 7 are young females, and of the 7, 2 are diesel mechanics, 2 are motor mechanics, and 3 are in auto body repair and spray painting. So we find that very, very encouraging. And I think as soon as we are through with the pilot, it would be very interesting to report back on just how things panned out in that pilot project.
Absolutely, Bajith. We'd love to hear the results of that pilot. When does that? When will you get the results of that?
All right. Well, so the pilot is multi-layered. What we're trying to do is we're piloting a workplace learning project. Let's just call it that for ease of understanding. And so what we're doing is we are recruiting, or we have recruited 5 small businesses in the 3 different trades: motor mechanics, diesel mechanics, and I'm going to speak of auto body repair and spray painting in one trade, if you don't mind. So yeah, we basically have recruited businesses in those 3 fields. Now, before we allow students to be deployed into those workplaces, we've got to make sure that those workplaces meet the requirements of the regulatory authorities in South Africa. So on the one hand, you have things like health and safety, and you have things that are completely non-negotiable. You have to have all of those things in place. And then on the other hand, we then come down to what the training authority wants. And the training authority wants a list of tools, a list of machinery, a curriculum, learning material, qualified artisans to mentor the young people in the workplace. All of that has to be in place before the young people are deployed into the workplace. Now, mind you, Jason, we are not working with small businesses who, let's put it this way, who are well-resourced. We are working with with businesses who come from a very township-based economy and environment. And I think that's quite deliberate, simply because what we're trying to do is we're trying to pilot this in the lesser advantaged places of South Africa, because that's where we find the biggest problems, the huge bottlenecks, where young people, because of their geographic location, because of their history, because of many reasons beyond their control, find themselves locked out of the skills development system. So, the brief from the British Council has been to work very closely with the government of South Africa to ensure that we use the pilot project to pilot innovative and flexible means of getting businesses that are not in the mainstream to get involved in this project, so that we can make recommendations to the authorities in South Africa on how to further scale a pilot project of this nature, so that we can get more young people involved and we can get more businesses who are not in the mainstream to get involved and to become accessible into the mainstream.
Bajith, it sounds fantastic, some of the work you're doing, and it'll be really intriguing to watch how that develops and some of the results of the pilot. I know some people who will be watching this will be from all parts of the world, as a typical IBIS audience is. So if they want to contact you, if there's things they want to learn about what you're doing there, maybe transfer that knowledge to other markets, how can they contact you, Bajith?
Jason, by email and the usual. Would you like me to give you the details right now?
Yeah, we can. We'll put the details up. We've reached the end of the session. It's been fantastic to speak to you. It sounds like a really exciting initiative and really building from the grassroots up and really trying to make a significant change in the market there in relation to skills in South Africa. So Bajith, I think I want to say a big thank you to you for sharing your thoughts with us today, and also sharing with us what the Guru Group of Learning is doing and all about. So I hope everybody's enjoyed the session today. You can watch this interview at ibisworldwide.com, plus other Leading Lights interviews. So that's it for this session today. So thanks to Bajith, and see you all again soon for another Leading Lights.